The baby shower invitation sat on my kitchen counter for 3 weeks before I could bring myself to open it. Pink and gold glitter scattered across the marble as I slid my finger under the seal, already knowing what I'd find inside. Sarah's perfect calligraphy announced the arrival of another blessing, her fourth child, another girl. My hands trembled as I read the name she'd chosen, Lily Rose. Lily. My Lily. The name I'd whispered to my second miscarried baby at 12 weeks, holding her tiny form in the hospital bathroom while my husband Michael was stuck in traffic. The name I'd shared with Sarah during one of those vulnerable moments when grief makes you forget that some people collect your pain like trophies. I should have known better by then. This wasn't the first time Sarah had done this to me. Her eldest son was named Oliver James, the exact name Michael and I had picked for our first pregnancy, lost at 16 weeks. Her second child, a daughter, bore the name Emma Grace. My Emma, who I lost at 20 weeks, whose nursery I'd already started painting in soft yellow. Her third, another boy, carried the name Noah Alexander. Each theft felt like she was reaching into my chest and pulling out another piece of my shattered heart. Sarah wasn't just my sister-in-law. She was Michael's older sister, the golden child who could do no wrong in their mother's eyes. When Michael and I got married 8 years ago, she'd stood as a bridesmaid with a smile that never reached her eyes. She'd given a toast about how she hoped I'd make her brother happy, emphasizing the word hoped like it was a challenge rather than a blessing. The competition started small. If I cooked Thanksgiving dinner, she'd host Christmas with twice the decorations. When I got promoted at work, she'd announced she was starting her own business. But everything changed when Michael and I started trying for a baby. That's when her competitiveness transformed into something darker, something cruel. Standing in my kitchen that morning, staring at her baby shower invitation, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to that shower. And this time, I wasn't going to stay silent. I'd been documenting everything for months, every stolen name, every cruel comment disguised as concern, every family gathering where she'd publicly wondered if maybe I was just not meant to be a mother. My phone contained screenshots, recordings, and evidence that would finally expose who Sarah really was beneath her perfect suburban mother facade. I texted Michael that I'd be attending his sister's shower. His response was immediate. "Are you sure? You don't have to do this to yourself." But he didn't understand. This wasn't about torturing myself anymore. This was about ending the torture she'd been inflicting on me for years. Sarah had taken everything from me, my children's names, my mother-in-law's affection, my peace of mind. But she'd made one crucial mistake with this fourth pregnancy. She'd gotten cocky, sloppy, and I'd been watching, waiting, preparing. The day of the shower arrived with unseasonably warm weather for October. I chose my outfit carefully, a navy dress that made me look professional rather than bitter. Pearl earrings that Sarah had once complimented before she knew they were a gift from Michael's grandmother, who'd loved me more than her own daughter. I wanted to look composed, rational, believable for what was about to happen. Sarah's house sprawled across 2 acres in the suburbs, all white columns and perfect landscaping. Walking up the driveway, I could hear the laughter floating through the open windows, the kind of carefree joy that comes from women who've never lost what they wanted most. My mother-in-law, Patricia, met me at the door, her surprise barely concealed. "Charlotte, dear, we didn't think you'd make it," she said, air-kissing my cheek while keeping her body angled away, like my infertility might be contagious. "I wouldn't miss celebrating Sarah's blessing," I replied, emphasizing the last word the way she always did when discussing my losses. Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly, but she stepped aside. The living room had been transformed into a Pinterest-perfect wonderland of pink and gold. Sarah held court in the center, her pregnant belly draped in designer maternity wear, surrounded by her mom group friends who hung on her every word. When she saw me, her smile widened, not with warmth, but with the satisfaction of a predator who'd just watched prey walk into a trap. "Charlotte, everyone, this is my sister-in-law Charlotte. She's been trying for a baby too, haven't you, Char?" The diminutive of my name felt like nails on chalkboard. She'd never called me that before my losses. The room fell silent with that particular awkwardness reserved for women discussing another woman's infertility. I smiled, taking my seat in the circle they'd reluctantly made space for. "Yes, we've had some challenges. But I'm here to celebrate you today, Sarah." The games began the typical shower fodder of guessing baby food flavors and measuring Sarah's belly with ribbon. But then came the moment I'd been waiting for. The name reveal. Sarah had kept it secret from everyone except me, knowing I'd seen the invitation. She wanted me to sit there while she announced it, wanted to watch my face as she claimed another piece of my grief. "Before we reveal the name," Sarah began, standing with difficulty, one hand on her back in that practiced pose of maternal suffering, "I want to share why this name is so special to me." She looked directly at me. Sometimes, names come to us in dreams, in moments of divine inspiration. This little one's name came to me during meditation, a word that means sacred child in ancient Sanskrit. My heart began to race. This wasn't Lily Rose. Something had changed. "Her name," Sarah continued, pausing for dramatic effect, "is Lexativa." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Sarah beamed, spelling it out slowly. Lexativa. It means she who brings light in Sanskrit. I discovered it during a spiritual retreat last month. I watched as her best friend, Jennifer, discreetly pulled out her phone, typing quickly. Others followed suit, their faces shifting from confusion to barely suppressed shock. Michael, who'd arrived to pick me up, was standing in the doorway with his phone out. I saw the exact moment he found what everyone else was discovering. "Sarah," Jennifer said carefully, "where exactly did you find this name?" Sarah's smile faltered slightly, but she pressed on with the confidence of someone who'd never been publicly humiliated. "It was in a book about sacred Sanskrit names. The author said it was perfect for a child destined for greatness." Michael stepped forward, his phone extended. "Sarah, you might want to look at this." The room watched as Sarah took the phone, her face draining of color as she read. Laxativa wasn't Sanskrit. It wasn't ancient. It was the brand name of industrial-strength laxative that had been recalled in the 1992nd for causing severe intestinal damage. The book of sacred names she'd found was actually a satirical blog post about baby names that will ruin your child's life, and she'd apparently only read the fake description without checking the source. This must be wrong," Sarah stammered, frantically typing on her own phone. But every search brought up the same results. Medical journals, FDA warnings, and most damningly, a Wikipedia page detailing the Laxativa lawsuit that had bankrupted its manufacturer. Patricia snatched the phone from her daughter's hands, reading aloud in horror. Laxativa was withdrawn from markets worldwide after causing over 300 cases of chronic bowel dysfunction. Side effects included. "Oh my God, Sarah, what were you thinking?" The room erupted. Some women tried to stifle their laughter. Others looked genuinely concerned, and a few were already texting furiously, no doubt sharing this spectacular fail with everyone they knew. Sarah's perfect reputation was crumbling in real time, and for the first time in years, I wasn't the one being pitied at a family gathering. "You did this," Sarah hissed at me, her voice low and venomous. "You somehow. You changed the website or something." "How could I change the entire internet, Sarah?" I responded calmly. "I've been sitting here the whole time. Maybe if you'd spent less time stealing names from grieving mothers and more time actually researching, this wouldn't have happened." The room went silent. Jennifer looked between us. "Stealing names? What is she talking about, Sarah?" This was my moment. I stood, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Oliver James, Emma Grace, Noah Alexander, and Lily Rose. Those were the names of my miscarried babies, every single one. Sarah knew those names because I shared them with her in my grief, and she took them for her living children. Gasps echoed through the room. Sarah's face had gone from pale to red. "Those are common names. You don't own names, Charlotte. Just because you couldn't carry to term doesn't mean—" "I have the text messages," I interrupted, pulling out my phone. "Every time I told you a name, you'd text your mom group within days about your inspiration for your next baby's name. You even asked me once what names I was considering for a girl, said you wanted to make sure we didn't pick the same ones. I told you, Lily Rose. 2 weeks later, after my loss, you announced your pregnancy and the name you'd always dreamed of." Michael moved to stand beside me, his hand on my back, a united front I hadn't felt in so long. "Sarah, is this true? Did you really take the names Charlotte had chosen for our babies?" Sarah's mask finally slipped completely. The perfect sister, the doting mother, the spiritual guru, all of it fell away, revealing something cold and sharp underneath. "So, what if I did? Those babies were never born. They were just ideas. My children are real. They deserve real names, not leftovers from someone who couldn't." "Sarah!" Patricia's voice cracked like a whip. Even she, who'd always taken Sarah's side, looked horrified. "How could you say such a thing?" "Because it's true," Sarah snapped back. "I've given you 4 grandchildren, Mom, real, living grandchildren. All Charlotte's given this family is drama and disappointment. Someone had to carry on the family legacy properly." The cruelty of her words hung in the air like poison. Several women quietly gathered their things and left, unable to witness any more. Jennifer stood frozen, staring at her best friend like she'd never seen her before. But I wasn't done. "Not yet. There's more," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. "The mysterious food poisoning I got at your last 3 dinner parties, always right when I was ovulating, which you knew because you'd ask about my cycle, pretending to be supportive. The prenatal vitamins you recommended that made me violently ill, the same brand you told everyone else in your mom group to avoid. The fertility clinic receptionist, who's your college roommate, who accidentally canceled my appointments 3 times. You're paranoid," Sarah sputtered, but her denial sounded hollow. "You're trying to blame me for your body's failures." "Am I?" I pulled up a screenshot on my phone. "This is from your Instagram, posted privately to your close friend's story. A photo of my prenatal vitamins that you took when you were at my house, with the caption, 'Switching these out for the recalled batch I kept.' Let's see if she notices." "You thought you deleted it, but Jennifer screenshot it and sent it to me last month." She grew a conscience, apparently. All eyes turned to Jennifer, who nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "I couldn't do it anymore. Sarah, you told me it was just harmless pranks, but switching someone's prenatal vitamins? That's attempted murder." The room exploded. Patricia dropped into a chair, her face white. Michael pulled out his phone, already dialing. "I'm calling the police." "This is assault, Sarah. This is—" "Wait," I said, placing my hand on his arm. There's one more thing everyone needs to know. Sarah was backing toward the door, but two of her former friends blocked her path. She was trapped, and for the first time in 8 years, I had the power. Your daughter, I said, looking at Sarah's eldest. The one you named Oliver. You might want to get him tested for learning disabilities. The vitamins you gave me that made me sick? I did some research. They were recalled for causing developmental delays in children whose mothers took them. You kept that recalled batch, Sarah. But you weren't just saving them for me, were you? You were taking them yourself during your first pregnancy because they were expensive and you didn't want to waste them. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. She staggered, one hand flying to her mouth, the other to her pregnant belly. No, that's not. Oliver's delays aren't because the speech therapy, the occupational therapy, the special education plan, I continued, each word deliberate. You've been telling everyone it's just him being a late bloomer. But you know, don't you? You know what you did to your own child because you were too proud to throw away expensive vitamins, too cheap to buy new ones. Patricia stood slowly, her voice shaking. Sarah, Oliver's struggles. The doctor said they couldn't find a cause. Did you? Did you take those recalled vitamins knowing they were dangerous? Sarah's carefully constructed world was collapsing. Her husband, David, who'd been recording their daughter's name reveal, stood frozen in the doorway, his face a mask of horror. Sarah, tell me Charlotte's lying. Tell me you didn't poison our son. I didn't know, Sarah screamed, her composure finally shattering completely. The recall notice came after I'd already been taking them for months. I didn't think. Oliver was fine at birth. He was perfect. It couldn't have been the vitamins. But you knew they were dangerous when you gave them to Charlotte, Jennifer said quietly. You told me you were teaching her a lesson, that if she got sick enough, she'd stop trying for a baby and stop making you look bad at family gatherings. The room fell silent except for Sarah's ragged breathing. Michael's hand found mine, squeezing tight. For years, I'd thought I was losing my mind, that my body was betraying me, that I was somehow broken. But it had been her all along. My own sister-in-law had been systematically poisoning me, sabotaging my pregnancies, stealing my children's names as some sick trophy. I'm pressing charges, I announced, my voice stronger than I'd ever heard it, for assault, for poisoning, for intentional infliction of emotional distress. I have documentation of everything, the switched vitamins, the canceled appointments, the food poisoning incidents. I've been building this case for 2 years. David finally moved, walking slowly toward his wife. Is there anything else, Sarah? Anything else you've done that I should know about? Sarah looked around the room at the ruins of her perfect life, her mother's disgust, her husband's betrayal, her friend's horror, and my triumph. And then she said the words that would haunt me forever. I killed Charlotte's babies, and I'd do it again. She doesn't deserve to be a mother. I'm the only one who should have given this family grandchildren. Me. Not some outsider who seduced my brother with her sob story about being an orphan. This family was perfect before she came along. The confession hung in the air like a death sentence. Michael lunged forward, but David caught him, holding him back while Sarah continued her poisonous tirade. Every miscarriage was a victory, she spat. Every time Charlotte cried at another family dinner about her empty womb, I knew I'd won. Those babies were never meant to exist. I made sure of that. Patricia collapsed, sobbing. The remaining guests fled, unable to bear witness to such evil. And I stood there, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Validation. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't broken. I had been targeted by someone who was supposed to be family. The police arrived within minutes, Michael had called them despite my earlier hesitation, and Sarah's confession in front of 12 witnesses made their job straightforward. As they read her rights, Sarah's demeanor shifted again, from rage to calculated calm. You can't prove anything, she said, even as they cuffed her. The vitamins are long gone. The food poisoning could have been anything. Charlotte's just a bitter, barren woman trying to destroy me because I have what she never will. But I had come prepared for this too. Actually, Sarah, I kept everything. The vitamins you switched? I noticed they looked different and saved them. The food from your dinner parties? I had samples tested after the third incident. They all contained herbs known to cause miscarriage, pennyroyal, blue cohosh, high doses of vitamin C. The kind of things someone who spends all their time on mom blogs would know about. The detective taking my statement looked increasingly disturbed as I presented my evidence folder, 2 years of meticulous documentation, including security footage from my doorbell camera showing Sarah entering my house when we weren't home, receipts for the recalled vitamins she'd purchased in bulk, and most damningly, a recorded phone call where she'd drunkenly bragged to Jennifer about solving the Charlotte problem permanently. David stood in the corner of the room, holding their youngest son, tears streaming down his face. How long, he asked me. How long have you known? I suspected after the third miscarriage, I admitted, but I couldn't prove it until Jennifer came forward 6 months ago. She couldn't live with the guilt anymore. Jennifer, who'd been giving her own statement to another officer, looked up. She threatened to ruin my business if I told anyone. She said she'd tell everyone I was having an affair with their husbands. She had photos, doctored ones, ready to destroy me. But after what she did with the vitamins, I couldn't be complicit in murder anymore. It wasn't murder, Sarah shrieked as they led her toward the door. Those things weren't even babies yet. They were wanted, I interrupted, my voice cutting through her protests. They were loved. They had names and nurseries and parents who dreamed of holding them. You took that from us. You took everything from us. As the police car pulled away with Sarah in the back, the family stood in the wreckage of what had been a baby shower. Pink and gold decorations mockingly cheerful against the horror of what had been revealed. Patricia approached me slowly, as if afraid I might run. Charlotte. I don't know what to say. All these years, I blamed you. I thought you were too stressed, too focused on your career, not taking care of yourself properly, Sarah always said. She always made it seem like you were the problem. She's very good at that, I replied, exhaustion suddenly hitting me like a wave. She's been doing it since the day Michael and I got engaged. You just never wanted to see it. Michael wrapped his arm around me, pulling me close. We're going home, he announced to his mother, and don't contact us unless it's through our lawyer. But as we turned to leave, David called out. Charlotte, wait, there's something else you should know. Sarah, she has journals. She documented everything she did, like she was proud of it. I found them hidden in the attic. I'll make sure you get them for your case. The journals changed everything. David brought them to our lawyer's office 3 days after the shower, 5 leather-bound books filled with Sarah's meticulous handwriting, documenting 8 years of calculated cruelty. Reading them felt like peering into the mind of someone who'd never seen me as human. Just an obstacle to be removed. The entries started before Michael and I were even engaged. Em brought her to dinner again. Mom actually laughed at her jokes. This ends now, read one early entry. She documented every perceived slight, every moment of attention I'd received that she felt belonged to her. But the most chilling entries began when we announced our first pregnancy. Charlotte's pregnant, 12 weeks. She was glowing at dinner, and Dad actually hugged her. My father, who should be saving his affection for his real grandchildren, ordered the pennyroyal oil today. She loves tea. This will be easy. Michael couldn't read them. After the 3rd page, he'd run to the bathroom and vomited. But I read every word, every detailed account of how she'd poisoned my food, switched my medications, sabotaged my appointments. She'd even bribed an ultrasound technician to tell us our first baby had chromosomal abnormalities when the tests were actually normal. We'd made the agonizing decision to terminate based on false information, and she'd written about it like it was her greatest triumph. Charlotte cried for 3 months after the termination. Em held her every night, but I saved that baby from having her as a mother. I'm a hero, really. Our lawyer, a formidable woman named Helen who specialized in reproductive assault cases, looked physically ill as she reviewed the evidence. In 30 years of practice, I've never seen anything like this. This goes beyond assault. This is reproductive, coercion, attempted murder, and frankly, sadistic torture. She won't see daylight for a very long time. But the legal system moved slowly, and Sarah had been released on bail, confined to her mother's house with an ankle monitor. The restraining order meant she couldn't come within 500 feet of us. But it didn't stop her from launching a campaign to destroy me in other ways. It started with a blog post. The sister-in-law who destroyed my life with lies. Sarah painted herself as a victim of a jealous, infertile woman who'd fabricated evidence and turned her family against her. She claimed I'd planted the journals, doctored the vitamins, and manipulated Jennifer into lying. The post went viral in certain mom groups, and suddenly I was getting death threats from strangers who believed her story. Barren bitches like you should kill themselves. Read one email. Sarah's a real mother. You're just jealous trash. Read another. Someone leaked our address, and we woke one morning to find baby dolls hanging from trees in our yard, their plastic faces painted with red X's over their eyes. Michael wanted us to leave town, to hide until the trial, but I was done running, done hiding, done letting Sarah control the narrative. So I did something I'd never done before. I fought back publicly. I started my own blog, Surviving Sarah, a documentary of reproductive assault. I posted every piece of evidence, the journal entries, the test results from the poisoned food, the security footage, the receipts. I shared the audio of her confession at the baby shower, the police reports, the medical records showing the suspicious patterns of my miscarriages. Within a week, it had been shared over 1 million times. The public tide turned quickly. Major news outlets picked up the story. The sister-in-law from hell, how one woman systematically destroyed another's fertility became a trending headline. Sarah's supporters dwindled as more evidence emerged. Other women came forward with their own stories about Sarah. Former friends she'd sabotaged, co-workers she'd tormented, even a college roommate who'd mysteriously gotten sick every time she had a date, only to discover years later that Sarah had been putting ipecac in her food. But Sarah wasn't done. If she was going down, she was determined to take me with her. 2 weeks before the trial, I got a call from Child Services. Someone had reported that Michael and I were running a drug operation from our home, that we were violent, unstable, and planning to kidnap a child. The social worker who came to investigate apologized profusely. It was clear the allegations were false, but they'd received over 50 similar reports in the past week, all from different IP addresses but with suspiciously similar wording. She's trying to make sure we can never adopt, I told Michael that night. exhausted from another round of interviews and home inspections. We'd started the adoption process 6 months earlier, finally accepting that biological children might not be possible for us. Now Sarah was trying to take that dream too. Helen, our lawyer, was furious. She's violating the restraining order by harassing you through third parties. This is witness intimidation. She filed motion after motion, but the damage was spreading. The adoption agency put our application on hold pending the outcome of the trial. My employer, facing pressure from anonymous complaints about having a baby killer on staff, suggested I take indefinite leave. Michael's business lost 3 major clients after someone sent them edited videos making it look like he was threatening Sarah. Then Jennifer disappeared. She'd been our star witness, the one who could corroborate everything. But 3 days before she was supposed to give her deposition, she vanished. Her apartment was empty, her phone disconnected, her social media deleted. The prosecutor was panicked without Jennifer. Sarah's confession at the baby shower became hearsay, harder to prove in court. But I knew Sarah better than anyone by now. I'd studied her like she'd studied me. Check her mother's cabin, I told the detective. The one in Vermont that they never talk about because Patricia's father left it to his mistress. Sarah mentioned it once when she was drunk. They found Jennifer there, locked in the basement, dehydrated but alive. Sarah's husband David had put her there on Sarah's orders, though he claimed he was planning to let her go after the trial. Jennifer's testimony became even more damning. She could now testify not just to Sarah's past crimes, but to kidnapping and false imprisonment. The trial began on a gray Monday in March. Sarah sat at the defense table looking like a grieving Victorian widow, all pale makeup and dark clothes, her pregnancy now showing prominently. Her lawyer's strategy was clear. Paint her as a hormone-crazed pregnant woman who'd made some unfortunate jokes that had been taken out of context by a vindictive sister-in-law. But they hadn't counted on the journals, or the videos, or the 23 witnesses who'd come forward. The prosecution presented their case methodically, building a wall of evidence that even Sarah's expensive defense team couldn't break. The recalled vitamins were entered into evidence, still containing Sarah's fingerprints. The test results from the poisoned food were explained by a toxicologist who confirmed that the combination of herbs found would have an 87% chance of causing miscarriage in the first trimester. The ultrasound technician Sarah had bribed came forward, granted immunity in exchange for testimony, and described how Sarah had paid her $5,000 to lie about chromosomal abnormalities. But the most damaging testimony came from Oliver, Sarah's eldest son. Now 7 years old, he'd been in therapy for 2 years. His therapist, with David's permission, testified about the drawings Oliver had made pictures of his mother putting bad medicine in Aunt Charlotte's drinks, of his mother laughing when Aunt Charlotte cried, of his mother saying the babies need to go away. Children don't fabricate details like this, the therapist explained. Oliver has been carrying the weight of witnessing his mother's actions without understanding them. He knew something was wrong but didn't have the language to express it. Sarah's mask slipped during Oliver's testimony. She actually stood up and screamed, "He's lying. They coached him. My own son wouldn't betray me like this." The judge had her removed from the courtroom, and the jury watched it all: the rage, the narcissism, the complete lack of remorse. When it was my turn to testify, I spoke for 3 hours. I talked about each lost pregnancy, each stolen name, each moment of grief that had been compounded by Sarah's cruelty. I showed photos of the nurseries I'd painted and then had to dismantle, the baby clothes I'd bought and then donated, the pregnancy journals that ended abruptly in tear-stained pages. "She didn't just take my babies," I said, looking directly at the jury. "She took my faith in family, my trust in others, my belief that people are fundamentally good. She made me question my own sanity, my own worth as a woman and a potential mother. She turned what should have been a support system into a weapon against me." Sarah's defense was weak. Her lawyer tried to argue that the journals were fiction, creative writing exercises. But handwriting experts confirmed they were hers, and the dates and details aligned perfectly with documented events. They tried to claim the vitamins were switched by accident, but the security footage showed Sarah entering our house with a bag and leaving without it, exactly when the switch would have occurred. When Sarah took the stand in her own defense, she sealed her fate. Unable to maintain her victim persona under cross-examination, she eventually exploded. "Charlotte doesn't deserve children," she screamed. "She's weak, pathetic. I'm the strong one. I'm the one who carries on the family legacy. Those miscarriages were nature's way of saying she shouldn't be a mother, and I was just helping nature along." The prosecutor asked one final question. "Do you feel any remorse for the pain you've caused Charlotte and Michael?" Sarah looked directly at me, her eyes cold and empty. "My only regret is not using something stronger in those vitamins." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts: assault, attempted murder, reproductive coercion, conspiracy, witness tampering, and attempted kidnapping. The judge, a grandmother herself, didn't hide her disgust during sentencing. In my 20 years on the bench, I have rarely encountered someone so devoid of empathy, so calculated in their cruelty. You targeted a vulnerable woman during the most painful moments of her life, and you did it with premeditation and malice. You are a danger to society, and particularly to women. Sarah was sentenced to 25 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for 15. David divorced her before she was even transferred to the state penitentiary, gaining full custody of their children with Sarah's parental rights terminated. The baby she was carrying, another girl, was born in prison and immediately placed with David. He named her Hope, refusing to use any name Sarah had chosen. Patricia cut Sarah out of her life completely, going so far as to legally disown her. She spent months in therapy, grappling with how she'd raised someone capable of such evil and how she'd been blind to it for so long. Eventually, she began rebuilding her relationship with Michael and me, though it would never be what it could have been. The adoption agency, following the trial coverage, fast-tracked our application as a form of apology for the delay. 6 months after Sarah's conviction, Michael and I brought home our first child, a 2-year-old boy whose birth parents had died in an accident. We named him Oliver, reclaiming the name Sarah had stolen. A year later, we adopted sisters aged 3 and 5. We named them Emma and Lily, completing our act of reclamation. But the universe had one more surprise. 2 years after Sarah's imprisonment, at age 38 and after being told it would never happen, I discovered I was pregnant. The pregnancy was monitored obsessively. I had a team of specialists, took every precaution, and held my breath for 9 months. When our daughter was born healthy and screaming, Michael and I sobbed for hours. We named her Charlotte, after me, because I had survived. I had endured. I had won. Jennifer moved across the country but stayed in touch. She testified at every one of Sarah's failed appeals, ensuring she stayed behind bars. She started a foundation for women experiencing reproductive coercion, turning her guilt into purpose. David remarried a kind woman who adopted his children and helped them heal from their biological mother's toxicity. Oliver, with proper support and therapy, thrived, overcoming the developmental delays caused by Sarah's selfishness. I still have days where the grief overwhelms me for the babies I lost, for the years stolen, for the innocence destroyed. But I also have 4 children who call me Mom, a husband who stood by me when his own family turned against me, and the knowledge that I survived something designed to destroy me. Sarah sends letters sometimes, forwarded through lawyers, still maintaining her innocence, still claiming I destroyed her life. I don't read them anymore. They go straight into a file for the parole board to review when the time comes. Because while Sarah sits in a cell, counting days and nurturing her hatred, I'm at soccer games and school plays, birthday parties and bedtime stories. I'm living the life she tried to steal from me. And that's the greatest revenge of all. The last time I saw Patricia, she was teaching my daughter Charlotte to bake cookies, the same recipe she'd once made only with Sarah's children. "I'm so sorry," she whispered to me when she thought I wasn't listening, tears in her eyes as she watched Charlotte flour the entire kitchen. "I'm so sorry I didn't protect you from her." "We survived," I told her. "That's all that matters now." And we did. Despite everything Sarah did, the poisoned vitamins, the stolen names, the systematic torture, we survived. Our family exists not in spite of her cruelty, but as proof that love is stronger than hate, that good can triumph over evil, and that sometimes justice actually prevails. Sarah thought she was destroying me, but instead, she forged me into someone unbreakable. And every day, when I kiss my children goodnight, when I use the names she tried to steal, when I live the life she said I didn't deserve, I win again. The news eventually moved on to other stories, other tragedies, other triumphs. But in certain corners of the internet, Sarah became a cautionary tale, the sister-in-law who went too far, the woman whose jealousy consumed her, the criminal who thought she was untouchable until she wasn't. And I became something else, a survivor, an advocate, a mother who fought through hell to build her heaven. This is where my story ends, or perhaps where it truly begins. With 4 children laughing in our backyard, with Michael's arms around me as we watch them play, with the knowledge that we created beauty from ashes, joy from sorrow, and a family from the ruins of what Sarah tried to destroy. She's in prison, but I'm free. She's alone, but I'm surrounded by love. She lost everything, and I gained more than I ever dreamed possible.